before Bethlehem, before Jesus in the manger, before the Savior of the world has come to save all of us. There's a whole backstory, y'all. There's a whole family tree that Jesus has, just like you got, just like I do. And oftentimes we just skip right through it in the Gospel of Matthew. But when you slow down and you start looking at the different names that led to the Savior of the world coming into existence, y'all, it's crazy. There are these 5 women that we find in the Gospel of Matthew, and the third lady on that list is a lady named Ruth. Now, Ruth is the least likely person you would think that would be in the life of Jesus or in the family tree of Jesus, because she was a Moabite. Everything was broke down in her life, and then she followed her mama-in-law to come back over to God's land, and she was widowed, and it just seemed like her life was over and everything was lost. But God, I'm telling you, man, you may be watching this thinking that your life is over, that all of your dreams and all of your aspirations about what your life was going to be, they all didn't play out. They all died, so to speak. And you may be thinking, well, I guess I'm just going to live widowed or single or disappointed, whatever that is. But this lady, Ruth, man, she is a shining example of a woman that by faith, she trusted God one day at a time. And her mother-in-law gave her some crazy advice that said, hey, you need to go out to this field and you need to glean in this field. You need to get the scrap, so to speak, in this field. And there was a guy named Boaz that owned that field. And long story short, they wind up getting married. And God would use the relationship between Ruth and Boaz to bring forth children that would go on to lead to the lineage of King David and ultimately lead to the lineage of Jesus Christ himself. What does that teach you and me? Man, here's what it teaches you and me, that God has a way of bringing outsiders into his family, that Jesus Christ came to start a movement that is for all people. And we see that in the very family tree of Jesus. That when Jesus was talking about his great whatever grandmother Ruth, everyone would have thought, man, how did she make the list? Well, Jesus came to start a revolution that was for all people. That God has a way of bringing all people together. And here's what it also means for you and me, that life may have disappointed you. Life may have gotten lifey for you, and you may be thinking, man, is there any hope? Can God do anything? And listen, God may be calling you to go glean in some field, so to speak. What I mean by that is he may be calling you just to go work where you can work. Maybe calling you to go be faithful, even just with a little bit, and then trusting that there's going to be someone that's going to come along and he's going to begin to unfold a story in your life that you could have never have imagined. This should be like a story that made Hallmark, y'all. This is like a great love story that we find in the Bible of how God saved this lady and her family and ultimately allowed Ruth to be a part of the lineage of Jesus. And so trust God today. If you're in a season of disappointment, don't give up. Be faithful with the next thing that God has called you to do. And you may even be getting some advice from your mother-in-law, but just maybe God is using that advice to set you up for the next thing that he has for you. And so don't give up. Keep leaning in and learn from the lessons of this woman, Ruth.